second grade, it's Mrs. Sylvester for your math review today. You have a pretty easy sheet that is on your slides, which is reviewing some patterns with basic addition. It's kind of neat to put it in to a table or chart like you have there. So keeping up with your fact fluency. And I thought that I would review today subtracting from 200, but really noticing the difference when we have to ungroup in the tens to get more ones and when we have to ungroup 100 to get more tens. So I wrote down two problems that are very similar. The first one is subtracting 56 from 200. But then this one is 207 minus 56. So what's the difference between the two? I have 7 ones in 207 instead of just 200. So I know that you all have gotten very comfortable with subtracting, but let's take a step back and really think about our place value and why we ungroup and why we make a 10 and just reviewing to make sure we understand what we're doing. So when we have 200, I'm going to draw my quick pick, and I know that that means I have 200 blocks. And I don't have any tens or any ones when I have my 200s in the blocks. So I have 56, so that means 6 ones. I like my strategy of my place value line. So 6 ones and 5 tens. I know that they're in there, but I need to see them so that I can ungroup. So how do I get to see my tens and my ones? Well, I need to start with one of my hundreds, and this 100, I'm going to exit out and use an arrow to show that it's the same as 10 tens. 100 is the same as 10 tens. So now I can draw my 10 tens. And on my equation, that's where I show that instead of 200s, I now just have 1. But instead of just the 100, I still have the second 100, but it's in the form of 10 tens. So that is why in my tens column, I show that I have 10 tens. But when I subtract, I'm really having to subtract my ones first. But I don't have any ones yet. So I need to now ungroup one of my tens. So first we had to ungroup 100. 100 became 10 tens. But now I need for one of my tens to be ungrouped, and 1 10 becomes 10 ones. So in this problem, I had to ungroup 2 times. I knew that I had 200, which is a lot, but in order to subtract 56, I needed some tens and ones. So that's why we ungroup. We're using the ungroup method here. So now I had my 10 tens, but I ungrouped one of them. So now instead of 10 tens, I only have 9 tens. So that is where we show on our equation that we have 9 tens. I have seen lots of second graders go from 200 and having 0 in the tens place and going straight to 9. And that is fine if you understand what you were doing here. I know that we ended in not really showing a quick pick as much, but we want to make sure that we don't forget what is going on when we ungroup. And instead of 0 ones, my 10 became 10 ones. So now I'm ready to subtract 56 because I have 10 ones, I have 9 tens now, and so I can subtract my ones. So 10 ones minus 6 ones. So in my picture, let me take a step back and just say we still have 200 here. We went from 200 as 200 blocks to now 200 as 100 block, 9 tens, and 10 ones. If we counted that all up, it would still be 200. Okay, so I'm taking away 6 ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I know that 10 minus 6 is 4, and I showed it on my quick pick. Next, I can subtract my tens. 9 tens minus 5 tens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, I'm not subtracting the 10 that I ungrouped. I like to use an X for when I ungroup, and if I'm using my picture to help me subtract, I just use a little slash mark. So 9 tens minus 5 tens is 4 tens. And I still have a 100 block, and I'm not taking away any hundreds, so don't forget to include that in your answer, that I still have 100 left. And those of you who like to use the adding up method, you can maybe think about starting with your add-in that was subtracted from 200 and knowing that you're making 100. So 50 and 40 is 90, and 6 and 4 is 10. So that there's your first 100, and then you have your second 100. And I can see that as I ungrouped, if I'm then quickly adding up and checking my answer now that I know what the second add-in is, I can see how the ungrouping really connects with the adding. Okay, but I wanted to look at this equation now where we have 7 in our ones place instead of just 200, because now when I go to subtract, I don't just have my 200 blocks, I have 200 blocks and 7 ones. So I can draw them in my quick pick. 100, 200 freeze. I don't have any tens, but I can draw my 7 ones. So I like to say, well, first subtract my ones. 7 minus 6, I can do that. More on top, no need to stop. So 7 minus 6 is 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 1 left. So next, I can subtract my tens. 0 tens minus 5 tens. Uh-oh, more on the floor, go next door. So now I need to ungroup. So notice, I did not need to ungroup when I was subtracting my ones because I had enough ones. I did not need to go next door to my tens place and ungroup a 10 to get 10 ones. But I do need to ungroup 100 to get more tens. Because if I have 0 tens, I cannot subtract 5 tens. I have plenty of tens, but they're here in my 100 block. So I'm going to take one of the 100 blocks. I'm going to take this one here and ungroup. And this 100 is the same as 10 tens. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So how do I show that on my equation? I went from my 200s to ungrouping one of them to become 10 tens. So I don't have 200s anymore, I just have 1. So let me show that. I don't have 200s anymore, I just have 1. And I don't have 0 tens, I now have 10 tens. And I can now subtract 5 tens. So 10 tens minus 5 tens is 5 tens. So notice this was very important to not just, make the 0 and 9. Some second graders think that they got the hang of it and that, when you have a 0 in the tens place and you have a 3-digit number like 207, just quickly make it into a 9. But remember, 100 first is ungrouped to 10 tens. And then if you need to ungroup one of the tens, if you need more ones, which we didn't do in this equation, that's why, like in this one, you would then have 10 tens, but ungrouping one of them to become 10 ones, and that would mean you now would have only 9 tens. So, and I still have my 100, so the answer to here is 151. So these, I was subtracting 56 in both equations, but I changed instead of having 200 to 207. So I hope that you have been keeping up with your understanding of place value, and this is something that will be very important in our future learning as we get ready to add and subtract within 3 digits, within 1,000. So I wanted to make sure to review a little bit about really understanding when we ungroup to get 10 ones and when we ungroup to get 10 tens. So keep up your great practice, and we are very proud of all your math work, and we will see you soon. Bye.